Imagine a bright, sunny day, filled with laughter and the promise of a joyous outing. Hundreds of families, mostly women and children, embark on a festive boat trip, ready for a day of celebration. Now imagine that idyllic scene transforming into a fiery nightmare in mere minutes, a disaster so profound, so utterly avoidable, that it wiped out an entire generation from a vibrant community. What if I told you this wasn't just a tragic accident, but a slow-motion catastrophe fueled by neglect, greed, and a shocking cover-up that left a city reeling for decades? This isn't just a story of a sinking ship. It's a chilling dissection of systemic failures that made a pleasure cruise a journey to hell. To truly grasp the horror of what unfolded, we first need to set the scene. It's June 15th, 1904, in New York City. The St. Mark's German Evangelical Lutheran Church of Little Germany, a tight-knit and thriving immigrant community, is preparing for its annual Sunday school picnic. For 17 years running, this outing to Locust Grove on Long Island had been a highlight, a chance for families to escape the city's concrete jungle and enjoy some simple pleasures. This year, the steamer General Slocum, a grand side-wheel paddle steamer known for its speed and elegance, had been chartered for the excursion. Over 1,300 people, predominantly women and children in their Sunday best, boarded the vessel at the East 3rd Street Pier. The air buzzed with excitement, children waved tiny American flags, and a brass band played cheerful tunes. Captain William Van Schaik, a seasoned veteran, stood at the helm, appearing entirely in control. Little did anyone know, beneath the fresh coat of paint and polished brass, the General Slocum was a floating tinderbox, a disaster waiting for the smallest spark. Her safety record was appalling, riddled with infractions and ignored warnings, a ticking time bomb disguised as a pleasure craft. The stage was set. The unsuspecting passengers were on board, and the river, usually a source of enjoyment, was about to become an inferno and a watery grave. The complacency and blind trust placed in the regulations, which were supposed to protect them, would soon be brutally exposed. The Slocum's ominous history didn't begin that sunny morning. For years, she had been a notorious offender of maritime safety laws. Inspectors, if they bothered to inspect at all, were often bribed or simply turned a blind eye. Life preservers, critical in any marine emergency, were found to be rotten, literally crumbling to dust upon inspection. They were disguised with canvas to appear new, but in reality, they were filled with pulverized cork, designed to absorb water and drag victims down, rather than keep them afloat. Fire hoses, another essential safety measure, were not only dry-rotted, but were glued to their racks to pass superficial glance-overs, making them utterly useless if uncoiled. Lifeboats were similarly incapacitated, painted over and rusted to their davits, unable to be launched. Even the crew, under Captain Van Schaik, lacked basic firefighting training. Many held no emergency drills whatsoever. This systemic negligence wasn't a secret in maritime circles, yet the boat continued to operate, a testament to unchecked corporate greed and regulatory failure. Less than an hour into the journey, as the Slocum steamed up the East River past 90th Street, fate, or perhaps karma, intervened. A small fire, reportedly started in a supply closet near the bow, was spotted by a cabin boy. He alerted crew members, but their response was disastrously slow and incompetent. The captain himself was alerted not by his crew's direct report, but by a passenger who noticed smoke. By the time Van Schaik was made aware, the fire had already taken hold. Instead of immediately running the ship aground or seeking the nearest dock, which would have offered a chance for escape, Van Schaik's initial decision was to maintain course, ironically fearing he'd block river traffic. This fateful choice pushed the burning vessel further upriver, directly against the strong prevailing wind, fanning the flames into a raging inferno. The wooden superstructure, varnished and dry, acted as kindling, and within minutes the Slocum was a blazing spectacle of horror. The children's screams, once joyful, turned to shrieks of terror as smoke billowed and flames licked at the decks. The band, in a final act of defiant courage, continued to play until the heat became unbearable. A joyous outing was now a living hell, a fiery trap from which there seemed to be no escape. As the inferno intensified, the meticulously overlooked safety failures became terrifyingly clear. Passengers, frantic with panic, rushed for the life preservers, only to find them disintegrating in their hands or filled with weighted, useless material that offered false hope before delivering a watery grave. Many who donned them sank immediately. The so-called lifeboats were fused to the deck, unable to be launched, mocking the desperate pleas of those trapped. The fire hoses, when finally brought out, either burst from rot or dribbled water ineffectually, doing nothing to quell the raging blaze. The flames, whipped by the wind, swept through the decks with merciless speed, consuming everything in their path. Witnesses on shore watched in disbelief and horror as families, engulfed in flames, leapt into the water, some clutching their children, only to drown due to their weighted, life-saving equipment or succumb to the cold, swift current. The shouts of "man overboard" quickly became an overwhelmed chorus of despair. Captain Van Schaik, in a last-ditch effort, finally steered the ship towards North Brother Island, a quarantine island closer to the Bronx, but by then, the decks were melting, and the ship was a floating pyre. The horror was unimaginable. Women attempting to throw their children to rescuers on nearby tugboats, only to miss. Families holding hands as they plunged into the river, knowing escape was futile. The stench of burning flesh carried on the wind. One harrowing account describes a mother, her dress ablaze, holding her infant tight, leaping from the top deck into the churning water, disappearing beneath the surface, a tragic emblem of the hundreds of lives violently extinguished. The Slocum became a fiery testament to criminal negligence, its hull groaning under the weight of death, the river stained with blood and despair. In the end, over 1,021 souls perished, including the largest single loss of life in a New York City disaster until 9/11. The St. Mark's German Evangelical Lutheran Church lost 600 of its 1,000 Sunday school children and their mothers. Little Germany, a vibrant cultural epicenter, was utterly devastated, its homes marked by black wreaths, its streets silent and hollow. The community never truly recovered. Within a decade, it had largely dispersed, its identity swallowed by the trauma. The subsequent investigation, predictably, was a rushed affair. Captain Van Schaik was convicted of criminal negligence and sentenced to 10 years in Sing Sing, though he served only 3.5 before being paroled. The ship's owners, the Knickerbocker Steamboat Company, faced minimal penalties for their flagrant disregard for safety. No significant changes to maritime safety regulations were immediately implemented, a chilling indictment of a system that prioritized profit over human lives. To this day, the sinking of the General Slocum remains a dark stain on New York's history, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences when oversight fails and accountability is avoided. The voices of those lost echo in the silence of what was once Little Germany, a silent scream against indifference and injustice. If you want more untold stories of forgotten tragedies and the chilling truths behind them, the next video explores the mystery of the Mary Celeste, a ghost ship's unsolvable riddle.